Welcome back to Forza Horizon 5. Today, I went on the internet and I found this, a ton of leaked Forza Horizon 5 cars that people found in the game files hidden away. People found a little bit of everything, from this Lamborghini Aventador SVJ, to a Ferrari Monza, to this crazy Subaru Baja buggy thing, to an updated Audi TT, and much more. And today, I'm gonna tell you why some of these cars will and won't be coming to Forza Horizon 5. So sit back and relax. This is gonna be a cool one. Real quick before we do jump deep into this Forza Horizon 5 leaked car list, I wanted to start today's video off by saying a quick thank you for all of the support on all of my FH5 videos. This month has been absolutely insane, so thank you so much if you've been watching the channel for a little while, or if you've just joined us, thank you so much for all of the support. It means so much. There is a ton more Forza Horizon 5 gameplay coming, so if you do want to see any of that, consider subscribing, and I guess let's jump into these leaked cars. So right off the bat, some players dug deep into the Forza Horizon 5 game files and found over 100 cars in the files of the game that aren't actually in the game. Those are what we're going to be talking about today, because they can sometimes tell us what cars are coming in the future. Let me read off my list here. These are just some of my personal favorites and some vehicles that I think some of you guys might enjoy in this game as well. So, Lamborghini Aventador SVJ, Lamborghini Huracan Evo, Ferrari Monza, the Ferrari J50, I didn't even know that was a car, there's only 10 of them in the world, a Jaguar XJ220 TWR, Audi TTRS that's updated like the facelifted version, this crazy Subaru Baja thing, this other crazy Subaru STI Rally GRC thing, a Ford Thunderbird, Plymouth Barracuda, Toyota Celica SSI, and a Honda Del Sol. And there's a ton more in the list that I don't have time to mention. So now that I've got your interest, you're probably wondering one of two things. Number one, when can I drive all of these vehicles in Forza Horizon 5? Or number two, what does these vehicles being in the files actually mean for the future of the game? Cars end up in game files for all sorts of different reasons, which I'll talk about. However, primarily there's two reasons. Number one, they're leftovers from previous games, or number two, they're parts of future projects. For example, did you know hidden away in the Forza Horizon 3 game files was a ton of unreleased cars for Forza Horizon 4, like the McLaren Senna, McLaren 720S, a London Taxi, and even the Peel P50. All of those cars were in the game files for FH3, and people found them and actually found out where FH4 was taking place before the game was even announced. And if you actually take a look at the hidden car list yourself, you'll notice that a lot of these cars are actually from older Forza games. For example, this is the Dodge Viper Horizon Edition before they even called them Forza Edition cars. This was from Forza Horizon 3. So what does that mean for Forza Horizon 5? Are all of these cars going to be coming to the game in the future? No. Will some of them? Probably. Which ones? I have absolutely no idea, and that's because of car licenses. Securing car licenses are one of the hardest parts about making any racing game. Whether it be like the simmiest of sim games, or the arcadey of arcadey games, car licenses are always front and center, and one of the hardest parts about making those games. I've actually wanted to talk about car licenses here on the channel for a very long time, because I feel like not a lot of people understand what they are and what they allow developers to do. For those of you who don't know, car licenses is what grants the developers the ability and right to include branded cars from car manufacturers in the game, whether it be a Ford GT, a McLaren 720S, the AMG Project 1, or even a tiny little Peel P50. All of those cars will have individual car licenses that the developers need to secure before they include the car in the game. This doesn't only apply to just Forza, this goes for every single racing game out there. It's not as simple as the developers just saying, okay, we know people really want that car, let's just include it into the game. That is not allowed and not how these things work. The way you get a car license for these games is to work with the car manufacturers themselves, who grant a license for that specific manufacturer and the make of that individual vehicle for that specific developer. Within these car licenses are a ton of moving parts like timing, availability, exclusivity, compensation, and so on, there are a ton of moving parts. Every single car license will be unique between the developers of the game, or the publisher, whoever's they're dealing with, and the manufacturer of the vehicle themselves, or the license holder. Side note, licensing actually applies to every single brand and logo that you see in any racing game, whether it be like simple things like a brake pad or brake caliper that's branded, like a tire manufacturer as well, or even bigger things like a body kit, a rear wing, things like that. All of those have to go through licensing before they can actually get added into the game, and those as well come with a massive laundry list of things that the developers need to do before they get added in. For example, exclusivity is often one of the things that keeps certain cars out of certain games. One of the most famous times this happened was back in the day when EA owned the exclusive rights for Porsche. If you've never heard the story before, back in the day, EA paid Porsche a boatload of money for the exclusive rights to include Porsches in their racing games. What that meant is any other racing game at the time couldn't just include a Porsche in their game without asking EA's permission first. EA would actually let other developers include Porsches in their game if they paid EA a bunch of money first. That's why back in the day, you'd often see Porsche DLC from certain developers who were trying to get some of the money back they spent on EA giving them the license for those particular cars. It's actually a pretty interesting story, but in the end, players ended up finding out what EA did and were so unhappy with it. There's never really been another exclusivity agreement like that between a developer and a manufacturer. There are still exclusivity agreements today though. Nowadays, exclusivity agreements are based around timing. Say a game gets a brand new make and model of a car that's super desirable that a lot of people want to play in a bunch of different games. A car manufacturer might take a payment from a certain developer for 3 months, 6 months, or even a year-long exclusivity so they can be the only game with that specific make and model of vehicle. These types of deals are happening all the time and are still impacting cars, slowly coming to new games even right now. Another reason you'll sometimes see certain manufacturers or certain models of vehicle missing from certain games is sometimes the car manufacturer's image, sometimes their brand view, doesn't align with the game's view and their outlook. These types of things are usually hidden away and you don't really hear about them too often, but one of the most simple ones is Tesla, for example. Tesla, for those of you who don't know, doesn't do any advertising and considers their cars being in video games an advertisement for their brand, so they just say, thank you, but no thank you, we're not going to be in there. Another pretty famous example of this, although it's never been confirmed officially, would be Rolls-Royce. Let's just say, Rolls-Royce is a little bit old-fashioned and probably doesn't like video games that much. So, over the time recently, they've just been like, no, we don't want to do it. One of the other reasons you might not see certain car manufacturers in certain games is sometimes it's just complicated. Sometimes there's a lot of license holders behind the scenes and a lot of moving parts, and to get all of those people and brands to work together and agree on like, this is gonna be the car license, sometimes that's just really hard to do. There's actually two pretty famous examples of this happening: the Mercedes 722 Sterling Moss and the McLaren Mercedes SLR. Just the names of those vehicles might tell you that there's a little bit more behind the scenes that's going on to get these cars included into the game. The McLaren Mercedes SLR, for example, you need both McLaren and Mercedes to agree on everything when it comes to the car license just for that one vehicle. And then that Mercedes 722, which is actually in the game files, that license is owned by both Mercedes and the Sterling Moss family. And you're gonna need both of those groups of people to agree on everything before that vehicle's even considered to be added into the game in the future. You can kind of see what I mean, that some of these car licenses can be pretty complicated, and to get all of these people to agree is nearly impossible. So you'll oftentimes see certain cars just left out for that reason. Car licenses also expire really, really quickly. So let's just say a car was in, say, Forza Motorsport 2, for example. That doesn't mean just because Forza had the license back then, they can include it in Forza Horizon 5. These licenses are always changing and evolving. These license holders are also changing and evolving. So as time goes on, everything is changing. So Just because a car was in an old game doesn't mean it's gonna be in the future game. Just to showcase how quickly everything can change, take a look at this Lancia in Forza Horizon 5 that the developers showcased themselves in the audio showcase, and then when the full game came out, Lancia was nowhere to be seen. Something must have happened with the car license, somebody must have not agreed with somebody, and that's why that car is not in now. I hope I've been able to share some insight for how these car licenses work. Obviously, each of them is unique in their own right, so there's obviously not just one thing that works for all of them. On one hand, it's awesome to take a look at all of these leaked car lists and go, yes, I can't wait to drive around with the Aventador SVJ or the updated Audi TT RS. But on the other hand, it's like, there's no guarantee that these cars are going to be coming to the game at any point soon. So take these with a grain of salt and just wait for Forza to officially confirm at some point in the future. If you enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing to the channel to stay up to date with everything Forza Horizon 5 related. I'll see you guys soon with some more FH5 gameplay. I'll see you then. Bye!